The blast split the afternoon apart. One moment the canyon rang with the ordinary rhythm of iron striking stone, men calling to one another beneath the wooden scaffolds of the mine. The next, a violent roar swallowed everything. The ground trembled. Birds burst from the cliffs in a frantic cloud. Smoke and dust exploded outward from the mine's mouth like the mountain itself had exhaled fury. An 8-year-old girl stood near the supply wagon at the edge of the dirt road, a tin cup still clutched in her hand. Her parents had waved at her only seconds before, smiling, promising they would be out before supper. She had been counting the minutes, drawing lines in the dust with her shoe. Then the world shattered. Wooden beams splintered like matchsticks. Rocks cascaded down in a thunder of stone. The air filled with choking gray clouds so thick they swallowed the sunlight. Men screamed, some inside, some outside. Someone shouted for water, another for rope. The girl didn't move. She saw everything. She saw her mother turn at the sound of the first crack. She saw her father shove another miner toward the exit. She saw the shadow of the collapsing support frame just before the entrance caved in completely. The sound that followed wasn't loud. It was worse. It was final. Dust settled slowly over the canyon floor like snow. Men rushed forward, clawing at the rubble with bare hands. Picks struck rock again, frantic now, desperate instead of deliberate. The girl stood exactly where she had been, the tin cup slipping from her fingers and landing in the dirt with a hollow clink. No one noticed her at first. They were too busy digging. Hours passed beneath a darkening sky. Lanterns were lit, faces turned gray with exhaustion and dread. Bodies were pulled free one by one, laid gently in a row and covered with coats. The preacher arrived. The doctor arrived. The sheriff removed his hat and said nothing at all. When they brought out her parents, side by side, someone finally reached for the child. She didn't fight. She didn't cry. She simply stared. Her mother's hand, once warm and calloused from years of washing clothes in cold river water, hung lifeless at her side. Her father's boots were cracked with dust. Their faces were strangely peaceful beneath the soot. "Sweetheart." The doctor knelt before her. "What's your name?" She blinked. Her mouth parted slightly, but no sound came. The doctor checked her pulse, shined a lantern gently near her eyes. "She's not injured," he murmured to the sheriff. "Just shock." The word seemed too small for what had happened. The town gathered around her in uneasy silence. Women whispered about taking her in. Men avoided looking at her altogether. Children were ushered away. Still, she said nothing. That night, as the bodies were carried toward town and the mine entrance sealed with timber and stone, she remained at the edge of the road. Dust clung to her hair. Her small hands trembled, but her face was blank, emptied of sound. Grief had not stolen her voice gently. It had buried it beneath rock and fear, just like the mountain had buried her parents. And in the quiet that followed the explosion, the little girl who had once filled the canyon with laughter became as silent as the mine itself. The town tried, at first. Mrs. Callahan brought warm bread wrapped in cloth and set it gently on the table beside the girl. The preacher knelt in front of her with soft eyes and softer words. The schoolteacher offered books with bright illustrations, pointing at pictures and asking simple questions in a hopeful voice. "What color is this? Do you like horses? Can you tell me your name?" The girl sat in the wooden chair near the boarding house window, hands folded neatly in her lap, staring at something far beyond the glass. Her gaze didn't wander. It didn't blink often. It simply rested somewhere unreachable. She ate when food was placed in front of her. She slept when guided to a bed. She followed when someone took her hand. But she did not speak. Not even a whisper. The doctor returned twice more. He checked her throat, listened to her breathing, snapped his fingers near her ears. "She can hear," he confirmed quietly. "Her voice is locked. The mind does that sometimes. Locked, as if it were something misplaced rather than shattered." Within 2 weeks, sympathy began to thin. The boarding house owner had 6 children of her own. Winter was coming. Extra mouths meant extra cost. The preacher suggested sending her east to a distant cousin whose letter had arrived too late to help. The sheriff mentioned an orphan train passing through in spring. Conversations happened around her as if she were furniture. She understood every word. One afternoon, while the town debated her future inside the general store, she slipped away. Her boots carried her down the dirt road, past the blacksmith's forge, past the church, toward the canyon. The mine entrance had been sealed with thick wooden planks and heavy stone. A crude warning sign hung crooked across it. The air still smelled faintly of soot and earth. She stood there for hours. Wind moved through the canyon walls with a low, hollow whistle. Pebbles shifted beneath her feet. Somewhere above, a hawk cried out. Her breathing quickened. In her mind, the explosion replayed without mercy, the cracking timber, the roar of collapse, her mother's face turning in fear. Her small hands clenched at her sides. Her mouth opened slightly. Nothing came out. Behind her, boots crunched on gravel. Dangerous place to stand, a rough voice said. She didn't turn at first. The man who approached was older, his shoulders stooped from years underground. Soot seemed permanently etched into the lines of his skin. His beard was flecked with gray. He carried no urgency in his movements, only quiet observation. He had worked that mine once. He knew the sound of it collapsing. He stopped a few feet away, not crowding her. They sealed it proper, he added. Won't fall again. She slowly looked up at him. Her eyes weren't empty, not anymore. They were stormy, alive with memory. He recognized that look. Grief he understood. Silence he understood even more. You hungry? He asked simply. No answer. He removed his coat anyway and stepped closer, draping it gently around her thin shoulders. She didn't flinch. After a moment, he extended his hand, not forceful, not demanding. Just there, the wind picked up, tugging at her hair. She looked at the mine one last time. Then at his hand. Slowly, carefully, she placed her small fingers into his rough palm. He didn't smile. He didn't speak again. He just turned toward the narrow trail leading up the ridge to his cabin. And she followed. The miner's cabin sat high above the canyon, where the wind was cleaner and the noise of town never quite reached. It was small. One main room, a stone fireplace, a narrow bed against the wall, and a rough wooden table scarred by years of use. It wasn't much, but it was steady. Solid. Uncomplicated. The first night, she sat on a stool near the fire while he stirred a pot of stew. The flames crackled softly, filling the silence without demanding anything from it. He placed a bowl in front of her and a spoon beside it. She hesitated only a moment before eating, slow and mechanical at first, then with quiet hunger. He didn't ask questions, didn't mention her parents, didn't try to pull words from her like others had. When she finished, he nodded once. There's extra blankets in the chest, he said, more to the room than to her. Fire'll keep through the night. She watched his lips as he spoke. She understood. Days found a rhythm. At dawn, he brewed coffee and handed her warm bread. Then they walked the ridge together. He showed her how to test rock with a hammer tap, how to listen for hollow echoes that meant danger. He didn't lecture, he demonstrated. She mirrored him, precise and observant. He noticed she reacted to subtle things. The distant shift of gravel. The faint groan of wood in the mine supports he still inspected. Her head would tilt slightly before any sound grew obvious. She wasn't lost in silence. She was listening too hard. One afternoon, clouds rolled in fast over the canyon. The air felt wrong, heavy, charged. They were near a narrow cut in the rock where loose stone often collected after rain. He stepped forward to inspect a support beam from an older shaft, boots scraping against gravel. She froze. A faint cracking sound whispered above them. Small pebbles skipped down the cliff face. Her chest tightened. The world tilted. The memory surged back. Wood splintering, earth roaring, dust swallowing light. The miner didn't hear it yet. He shifted closer to the base of the ledge. The crack grew louder. Her breath came sharp and fast. Her hands trembled violently at her sides. The canyon blurred as past and present collided in her mind. No, not again. The ledge snapped. Stop. The word ripped from her throat like it had claws. Raw, loud, alive. The miner turned instantly, instinct honed by years underground. He lunged backward just as a slab of rock crashed down where he had been standing. Dust exploded around them, stones clattering across the ground. Silence followed, thick and stunned. She stood shaking, eyes wide with horror at the sound she had made. Her hands flew to her mouth as if trying to catch the word and shove it back inside. But it was too late. It had escaped. He stared at her through the settling dust, chest rising hard. Not in anger, not in shock, in understanding. You heard it, he said gently. Her knees buckled, and the sob came next, loud, broken, unstoppable. Not the silent tears she had carried for weeks, but grief finally given air. She choked. They were inside. The words came jagged and uneven, but they came. He closed the distance between them and knelt, pulling her into his arms. His embrace was firm, grounding, steady as stone. I know, he whispered. She cried until the canyon echoed with it, years of love and terror and loss pouring out all at once. And when the storm inside her finally began to quiet, her voice did not disappear with it. It stayed, small, fragile, but hers. And from that day forward, the cabin on the ridge was no longer silent.